Hi, I'm Lauren Green. In the Fox News digital exclusive three-part series documenting the political, technological, and cultural challenges within the Hasidic community in New York and surrounding areas, Fox News digital reporter Elizabeth Llorente faced her own challenges with bringing these stories to light. From finding Hasidic community members willing to talk to an outsider to the sheer difficulty of finding a single female to share her experiences. Llorente's reporter notebook is just as compelling as her exclusive features. And Elizabeth joins me now to discuss her behind-the-scenes journey. This is very interesting. And what made you go to the Hasidic community to try to infiltrate or to try to do a story on them?
Well, there were a lot of stories just happening individually basically about clashes, in the New York and New Jersey area over, really the common thread was the need or efforts by Hasidic leaders to expand, from outside, from their communities, which are seeing just incredible growth, and they have large families, and they just were basically outgrowing the communities that they're in, and so their efforts to expand into the communities led to resistance. And so there were a lot of stories about this. There were council meetings, there were lawsuits, and so instead of doing these stories piece by piece, we thought, let's take a step back and just look at what is happening in the New York area.
And why were there so many struggles? I mean, what really was the first thing that you noticed that this is going to be harder than you thought?
Well, it's a very insular community. It's a community that is cut off in many ways by the focus, I guess, more than other communities on religion and on just their living within their own parameters and really being self-sufficient to the extent that they don't really deal with outsiders very much.
One of those aspects is the education. I mean, they focus on the Torah and not really on anything outside of, the barest brief, as you say, on English or mathematics.
And that's true particularly for boys, because boys are seen as potential rabbis someday. And so they are they're taught religion, they're taught the Torah, thinking that someday they're going to be possibly a rabbi. And so that takes up most of their day. And maybe there'll be 90 minutes devoted to English and math.
Wow.
Yeah. And
is that the highest that a boy should achieve in a community, is to be a rabbi?
Yes. That's seen as the highest goal to shoot for. And of course, most boys don't make it to rabbi.
What about the women? Was it hard to approach the women about their lives and about what they were going through?
It was hard. I mean, it was hard to get people to open up anyway, because there is a mistrust, of the outside world. And part of it is because of the backlash that they often see. But the women in particular, for reasons that I still don't fully understand, were harder to get to open up. Even women who had left the community. So, because there was always concern about the impact that speaking out would have on people who were still back in the community.
There's one thing you brought up in an article which I thought was so fascinating. I think it's the Va'ad. What is it called? The Va'ad?
The Va'ad, yes.
The Va'ad, which are the enforcers. Who are these people?
They basically watch to make sure that you conform to the rules. Rules about how to dress, rules about how to behave. And so if you're out of line in any way, they hear about it, and then they call you for a meeting.
Well, and what about the people who leave? Why do they leave, and what happens to them when they do leave?
Well, a lot of times they're shunned by family and friends. And so it's a very difficult decision, because while many of them find, quote-unquote, freedom, they also go into this world that was previously scary. And all of a sudden they find themselves alone.
That's one of the aspects you bring out, because they actually call the world outside theirs the bad world. Those are the people who are the idiots. They're insane. Why is that?
Well, those are the words of one person in particular. Because I guess people who are outside the community value independence, value taking risks, all the things that they they discourage. And sometimes those risks and trying to get out of your comfort zone can lead to things such as drugs and, you know, risky behavior that's not necessarily good for you or for the people around you. And they see that, and they don't want that. And they see that as being part of being outside of their community.
But there is this clash now with the outside community, and it's taken really legal ramifications. What's the worst kind of clash that you've seen legally that's happening with the community and the civil authorities? Yeah,
well, there are the Arabs, which basically are demarcations, you know, and they can be.
Yeah, the Arabs are actually they're not people; they're actually
right.
like a line. Sometimes they use the telephone lines in a community to draw a parameter around a neighborhood to make it in-house so that they can come outside.
And they do it in different ways, right? But they have set up some Arabs in towns where there isn't a Hasidic community, and then people in those towns are, first of all, getting upset, and then they're afraid that all of a sudden they're going to be a lot of people from a community that is not vested in the public school system. And that's really the biggest concern, is the impact that it could have on the public school system.
You know, the Arab is one particular issue that affects a lot of communities because, and I did a story on this once in West Hampton Beach in the Hamptons, and I was surprised that one of the biggest backlashes came from secular Jews and not Christians or non-Jews.
Right. And
it's a very interesting kind of understanding of the community.
Right, because they live a very different life, even though they're Jewish as well, but it's a very different lifestyle than Hasidic Jews. And they use, you know, the public school system, and it's for the same reason that other residents have their reservations when they see the Arabs.
You know, one of the things that actually is happening to one of the clashes is that they use the laws that are there, and they take advantage of perhaps even welfare laws or educational laws, or even try to change the laws in favor of the community.
Yeah, I mean, well, they use public assistance, and a lot of times, you know, they need them because they say, well, you can have a father, say, making $60,000 a year, but if you have to support 8, 10, 12 kids, you know, so yes, they're going to need public assistance, but that also creates resentment,
right,
among other neighboring residents.
Wow. Well, Liz, thank you so much for this, for coming on and talking about this very interesting story and how people check it out online. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
To view the 3-part Fox News digital series, go to foxnews.com. I'm Lauren Green, and thanks for watching.